Let's do this.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a brand new, fresh brewed episode of Coffee with Toffees. It's been a while. We've been in Seattle. We've been all over the place doing all kinds of stuff, but we are back. You can find me at Toffees TV, and you can find the people who make the show possible at Aces Republic of Gamers, GameLeap.com, the only place where you can learn to play from a pro, and of course, pro-built systems for building the computer that we broadcast from. Now, the real hero of the show, I've said it before, I'll say it again, is our guest today, and he is none other than someone you've probably heard of. He goes by Maut. He's Travis Bueno, commentator, observer, analyst for Moonduck, HighGround, a bunch of other organizations through his career. He's done it all. He's been everywhere. I'm excited to chat with him. Welcome. How are you tonight, Maut?
I'm doing really well, man. Thanks for having me again on this program, and I'm excited to talk about TI, which of course we both enjoyed and had a lot of work that we did during the entirety of the event. So thanks for having me once again.
No problem. Now, for some of you who are just tuning in on the podcast, you weren't here for the hoopla of technical issues we had at the start, but I do want to bring up something we talked about in when I was with Mute Maut a little bit earlier, and that was call times. I was up very early for the morning show type of deal, but I know that when I was trying to get guests for the show, a lot of the broadcasters and talent were telling me, hey, my call time is 8 o'clock. It's super early. What was that? What were mornings like? Because all of us were rolling out of bed to watch some TI, 10 o'clock, sleeping in. What did your days look like?
Like I said during when we were talking earlier, my call time for the group stages was usually 8:30, I believe, roughly around that time, because we had the start of the day every day for group stages. Then for main event, we kind of had it rolled back a little bit. It would be like somebody like Toby or OD doing the first couple of series, the first series, I should say, and then they would be we'd be like the second, third, or fourth series, either one of those series, like sometimes even the last series of the day. So then the call time gets even more to 11 to like 12, maybe even 1 o'clock, depending on how games were going. So
nice.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. And it was fun too, to be honest. Like, it was really fun. So
awesome. Now we're going to get, and this is a good taste of where we're going with this, is I want to ultimately get to TI, but I think that what I want to do with our chat, and it's something that I think I want to re-examine your career. I want to kind of go with you to where you are, because you got a chance to cast with LD on the main stage. I think in an interview with Hotbid once upon a time, you claimed that LD's caster MMR was probably 7K. So he's somebody that, I think you probably have watched for a while. So that also has to be a really cool experience. But let's go back to the beginning and talk about a little bit of just tell me, where are you from? When did you start playing Dota? Some stuff like that.
Well, I first started playing Dota back in patch 5. I don't remember what patch it was, but it was in Warcraft 3. It was a little after it came out in Frozen Thrones. It was Dota All-Star for a bit, but I had played mostly during LAN parties. I never really played when I was at home alone. I was always more of a Warcraft, World of Warcraft / Counter-Strike kind of guy back then.
Okay.
But I first got into Dota 2 heavily when I got a beta key after playing WoW with some friends of mine. And then I started playing Dota. I really enjoyed it. And a couple months after that, TI2 qualifiers were rolling around, and I had watched a video, I think Purge, doing hey, this is how you get into casting. And I started doing that, and it kind of worked out. And then ever since then, it took me maybe 3 to 4 years to get back to this position, to cast how much I did. But it was an incredible journey. I think I was I can't tell you how many times I got screwed over. I made the wrong decision, and I got destroyed along the way. But now everything is kind of back to where it was, and I'm feeling pretty good about how everything is right now, honestly.
So it's been a long journey, and I think that one of the things that I want to bring up and we'll talk about more is the fact that to me you're unique in your casting success, because you've ground a lot of the way here. You've sort of fought your way through NA Dota, Neo Dota. God, that was forever ago. HighGround, Moonduck, and tournament after tournament after tournament, small tournaments, whatever you can cast. We see a lot of these new casters who burst onto the scene having these sort of lightning strike moments, right? This like 2.5 hour game where they carry the whole thing and all of a sudden Reddit says, show some love, they get a couple of good breaks, and now they're a mainstream caster. I feel like you've sort of had to climb a ladder rung by rung by rung the entire way. And like you said, some of the rungs have broken and keep putting you back to, well, I got to take the next step. Do you feel like that's fairly accurate, or do you feel like there was a lightning strike moment that sort of gave you the path to the main stage?
There definitely wasn't a lightning strike moment. I mean, there might have been a couple of small lightning strike moments, but, you know, a lot of people used to hate my casting for good reason. I would do a lot of stupid shit. Honestly, that wouldn't work out half the time when I did it. So, you know, I eventually was able to learn about, you know, okay, well, what do I need to fix? What do I need to change? You know, a lot of that had to do with just audio issues and stuff like that. But, you know, because I worked so hard, I was able to figure out all that stuff, eventually become proficient at what I'm supposed to be doing for a living and what I'm supposed to be very accomplished at. And so while I'm happy that I did all those things, and yeah, it sucks that it's been so much time for me to get to this position. I'm happy that I'm able to become somewhat good at what I do. Not to say that people that get that lightning strike aren't, because they're fine. Honestly, they're very good, especially Owen, obviously, who is way better than a lot of casters, including myself. It's just that I'm glad that I've had the ability to work on it and kind of look back and reflect on what kind of happened with my life. So, and casting.
Well, speaking of what happened with your life, let's based on what you told me about when you started Dota, it sounds like that was sort of late high school, early college, if I don't miss my time frame. Now,
roughly.
Okay, so when you chatted with Hotbid at the summit, he pulled out this interesting bit of information that you were a swimmer for a long time, that you were very into swimming competitively. I think you actually said it's the worst possible sport you could ever put your kid in because all you do is stare at a floor of a pool for 3 hours at a time. That said, though, you were pretty serious about it. I've got some photos I'm going to show the folks here. This is Coach Maut, if you guys want to see what he looks like when he's truly intense. And for those of you who don't know, Maut was actually a swim coach and quit his job to go work at TI4, if I remember correctly. And this is a picture of Maut on the swim team. So you were actually a Division I swimmer. And
no, it was not a Division I swimmer.
No, it wasn't? Was it a D1 school at least? Because it said D1 on the...
It was D3.
Okay.
But we had intense training as pretty much like a D1 school would. I wasn't good enough of a swimmer to make to D1, although I just didn't want to commit myself to, you know, a D1 school, which would be like Buffalo. I didn't want to go to Buffalo to swim. I didn't even really want to swim that much in college. It was probably a mistake to do that because I was burnt out, you know, after swimming, you know, all year round for a long period of time, for like, I don't know, 12, 13 years. I was like sick of it. And then I did it anyways. And that's kind of why I dropped out of college, just because I was doing too much swimming. But then that turned into too much partying. And then I just sort of gave up on school and all that stuff. And I just started playing games again. And then when I started playing games, I realized, like, okay, I really like doing this. So how can I make this my living and like not have to go back to school? And so
then let me ask you about that transition. Clearly, I mean, swimming at even a D3 school, like there's a lot of work and a lot of training involved. Did any of those skills you developed spending so much time in a Speedo transition to helping you develop as a caster?
I mean, I wasn't shy about like showing my nipples off at that point. I guess is the thing I can say that certainly helped. Like, because you're swimming so often, I don't know how you can really be concerned about that type of thing. I think the biggest thing for me transitioning into casting was being a coach and like learning to talk and sort of being good at oratory. I think was an important factor to my transition because I was already very good at dealing with people, dealing with kids, dealing with the kids' parents, and talking with them about what they needed to change, what they needed to fix, how well they were doing, and so on and so forth. And so the biggest thing for me was just try to transition that. Instead of talking to kids and their parents about what they needed to do better and about how they were doing in swimming, was to talk about what a team was doing during a team fight and in Dota. And like, I already knew I was very loud. I can be very loud if I need to. So that kind of just, I was like, okay, well, let's just transition that into casting, which I obviously know I'm pretty good at talking. So why not start there and see what happens? And that's kind of how it went.
Very cool. I was just curious about that. Now, I do want to talk about your international journey. And we'll talk maybe about some studios if we have time and stuff later. But basically, TI2, you said you sort of discovered competitive Dota. TI3, you attended as a fan, but I think you were doing some casting at the time. I got to see some interviews from a couple different sources during that period. Then you went to TI4 as staff, where you sort of got to do the group rounds and the qualifier stages on site. TI5, you went as a Suns fan. And then TI6, you got to go to the main stage. So the first thing I want to ask is, TI4, you're there as staff. It feels like that's the first step, right? You quit your coaching job. This is my chance. Tell me about TI5 invites and sort of how hard it is to bounce back. Because you went back to casting right after TI5. It didn't stop you. And was that tough to keep going after not getting the follow-up invite?
Yeah, I think I was a bit, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. I think I was a bit optimistic about the invites. Like I was sure almost that I was going to get an invite to TI5 because of my work that I had done with Dota Pit the previous season with Trough. I thought Trough and I did a very good job with Dota Pit, and not just Dota Pit, but with other tournaments in general. So I would say very confident and cocky that I would get an invite to TI5. I remember telling Trough, like, oh, you should expect to get an invite. I had no idea at the time. I was an idiot. I was an idiot kid. And when I did get the invite, I was like, wow, okay. Well, that's something that happened. And I think at the time I was thinking, like, why am I doing this? Am I really doing this for any real particular reason? Like, is this actually going to work out for me? So I felt bad for myself. And then a couple people messaged me and they're like, hey, you're coming. We're getting you a ticket. Of course, a lot of this was with Suns fan and with Sajidine. They're like, hey, we're getting a ticket and we're bringing you. I'm like, okay, sure. And that's kind of where Moonduck was formed at TI5. And yeah, I wasn't working, I wasn't casting there. And it was kind of interesting to see it all unfold. I was still hanging out with a lot of the talent. But, I wasn't really ever feeling sorry for myself at that point. Like, once I had gotten to the TI, like, at that time, I was just having fun. Yeah. And then I came back and I just started working as hard as I could for the next year, and I guess it worked out. So, what could you say? I guess. So.
I mean, the proof is in the pudding, right? And it reminds me, it's what was it? Right after TI5, I remember watching a Demon stream, and he was having one of his visceral, honest moments, and somebody asked him, like, "What's your plan?" He said, "My plan is to become relevant again by TI6." And he just grounded out, found a team, did his thing, and came back. I feel like you sort of used the TI5 situation as this impetus to just drive you forward. You joined Moonduck. We saw I don't want to say tremendous success out of Moonduck, which we've talked with Zayori about in the past. However, for those of you who didn't watch that episode, go back and watch it. Zayori talks about sort of the plans for Moonduck in the future, some cool stuff coming up. But I think that you saw some success out of that. When I saw a lot of domestic tournaments, especially in the North American region, it was sort of like Maut was the brand, right? It was like if it's a North American essential tournament, Maut was involved. And then you sort of got to keep going, casting a lot. I feel like you were a staple for Moonduck for a long time there. Do you think that Moonduck studio conjoining was a big part of moving to TI6?
Maybe. I can't say for sure, honestly. I can say that, yeah, it certainly did help the brand, I think, to a certain extent. HighGround was great and all, but it wasn't the brand that I needed to push myself up to another level. I was kind of, very positive about Moonduck. We had a lot of great people working on the initial run of Moonduck, but we lost a lot of tournaments to other organizations because simply we weren't proven. There was nothing to show that we could run a tournament successfully, online or otherwise. And we lost out on tournaments because of that, which is kind of frustrating. But, ever since then, we've been getting more and more opportunities to work with other companies and other organizations, and tournaments are starting to realize that, hey, we can actually do this kind of thing. And it's looking like it's going to be something that can help us in the future. But I don't know, honestly. I think that Moonduck definitely helped. It didn't hurt. That's all I can say about that. But the beginning of Moonduck was definitely very, very hard for a lot of us. So I'm just glad that it got me to where I am, and I'm glad that I'm working with the people that I'm working with. So.
Yeah, it seems like you've got a great team. Speaking of great teams, we can go back. You mentioned HighGround a little bit, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on that. But it was sort of this interesting thing that happened in the scene where it was sort of this organic group of casters who were all grinders, got together and started this organization. I believe it was you, KotlGuy, and What Is Hip were sort of the faces of the org. Two of them work for BTS. One of them works for Moonduck now. Was that the ultimate goal? Was it just an incubator, or do you guys feel like you tried to do the same thing and just couldn't get the tournaments because you weren't proven?
I think that the main goal for everyone was to have something that we could call our own, but really just try to essentially get our own. What's the word I'm looking for? Get our own way to get paid and to make money doing what we loved. And I think we never had a statement that said, "Hey, listen, you know, we're not allowed to go anywhere." We kind of just assumed that everyone would stay around and stay by. And then KotlGuy got invited to BTS, and that kind of went out the window. We were like, okay, well, then we could just do this. And then, you know, Greg kind of was doing his own thing at the time with Vulcan. And so then Moonduck came up, and I kind of jumped ship. So, I mean, I think all three of us weren't, like, oblivious to the fact that we were probably going to leave at one point. But I definitely did want to try and make something with HighGround. But I realized that the only way that we were going to do that is with KotlGuy. And with him leaving, it was sort of like, okay, I understand why he did it, because he had to go and he had to support his family. Right. And obviously it's helped him out a ton in the long run, and it's great. But I really did want to like try to make something with him in particular, and Greg obviously. But without Dakota, it was really tough. So I kind of just had to make a decision and then head over to Moonduck at that point.
So you went to Moonduck. Ultimately, you went to TI6. You lived a dream that many people hope one day to accomplish. Tell me a little bit about this. As somebody who has been working, and if you guys aren't familiar with Maut's portfolio of work, I've been following him since TI3. In fact, Maut, when I was trying to be a caster, you're the guy who taught me how to run camera. I don't know if you remember that or not, forever ago for NA Dota. That said, I have been watching, and you have been the consummate grinder. If a game needs covered, the hours put in, which is one of those guys who understands the scene and is constantly broadcasting, and you have to actually respect that. So as somebody who's worked so hard to get there, what was it like to actually be there? Not for qualifiers, but for the main show.
Pretty damn exciting. And it was exciting at the same time, but it was also very daunting, you know, because doing Manila was one thing. In Manila, I felt like I was kind of in the zone. I was doing my own thing, and like nothing bothered me. And the crowd didn't bother me at TI either. It was really more of I don't know. It was kind of weird to go back and look at and be like, oh, I'm actually at TI right now. I'm actually casting on stage. And I kind of had to like put that thought process out of my mind, because it came up every like 10 or 20 minutes or something like that. And I was like, oh, I'm casting final day of TI. This is kind of weird. Like, why I didn't I got the schedule for main stage, and then I was like, wait, what? I kind of had to do a double take a couple of times. And like, you know, the TI casting was great, especially for the group stages. I mean, for that, and the particular issue that I think a lot of people had with that casting was the pairing that they had was me and LD, two hypecasters going together. I mean, I wasn't very confident in my analysis, and so we kind of had to switch around and decide what we were going to do, like 2 or 3 or 4 different times. We had to change things up, LD and I. Eventually, it got to a point where I think I was really struggling, and in the last 2 days, we just said screw it, and we did the best that we could with who we were, because it's just, if you put me with any other caster, I think that maybe the same issue arises. But I think for some reason I just have this like I said when I was in that interview with Hopid, I felt that LD was like a 7K MMR caster, and this is at a time where no one was above 7K. So I considered him the cream of the crop, and I have a lot of respect for LD. So much so that it was kind of hard for me to work with him. Excuse me. So that kind of like, you know, I think the biggest issue for me was like having the confidence to cast with him on the main stage. I think if you put me with anybody else, it might have been a bit easier on me, but it just was something that, like, I don't know, I had too much respect for him or something like that. Eventually I got over it. And obviously it worked out well, but it was just something that kind of was difficult at the time for me.
So
but
to pivot off of that, this is a question I'm curious about. I heard rumors that early on in your casting career, you were very picky about who you cast with, that you didn't want to just cast with anybody. Is that true? Is that true? And do you still feel that way, or what sort of motivated that, and did it change?
I think I've said that, but I think it's taken out of context.
Okay.
I think that when I said I'm picky, it's just that a lot of the time it's like that lack of confidence thing. Like I don't like. I'm sure the person I'm going to be casting with is like a perfectly fine person and a perfectly fine caster. I almost just prefer casting by myself because I know that at least when I'm doing it by myself, I'm at least good enough that I can get away with doing my own thing, and I don't have to worry about embarrassing myself in front of another person or having to, whatever the cast is like. It's all on me in that sense. And yeah, I will say like I wouldn't say super picky about who I cast with. It's just that like I know some people better than I know other people. Like, I'm more comfortable casting with Purge than say, I don't know, some other person that I don't know, for example. It's just, that's how it goes. Like, I'll cast with whoever as long as I know the person. I've had more than 1 or 2 conversations with them. It's just that's who I am. I can't help it, honestly. It's just that if I'm not comfortable casting with a person, then I feel like the cast is going to suffer. And that's kind of how I felt going into some of the other tournaments that I did this year. So that's what is kind of going. That's my thought process going into some of those casts.
That makes sense. Now, again, you did address you and LD were sort of teamed up. TI did something different. Valve something a little different this year, where panels and caster mixes were sort of formatted for the entire event to sort of build rapport, I suppose. I know that you absolutely respect LD and would probably love to work with him and cast with him anytime that you can. But in that particular scenario, would you have preferred to have like a Purge with you? Do you think that it would have been better received? Or do you think that you and LD's work ethic got you to a point where you guys were happy with the cast?
I think I wouldn't be there if it wasn't for LD and our cast at Manila in the first place. So I think that I wanted to be with another person, I think it's probably the wrong thing to say.
I like that.
I might have been more comfortable with a Purge because, and I think both of us would have been because we're hype casters that are with analysts, and that would be the most comfortable situation for both of us. I think in that scenario, but we were given an opportunity to try something new and different with the double hype cast, which worked out in Manila. But it depends on the game. Like if we get a good game that's constant action, constant fighting, back and forth, we both know what we're doing, then we're in our zone. And that's what happened in that cast in Manila. But the unfortunate thing about Dota is that it's not always like that.
Right.
There's a lot of games, there's a lot of split pushing games, there's a lot of rat games, there's a lot of games that go over 80 minutes. Even if there's a lot of action, it's still just you can't predict the type of game that you're gonna cast before you cast it. And it's better to have a cast. If it's a longer cast and there's a lot of action, then you even if there's a lot of action, you still prefer to have an analyst with you that can go the distance with you, that you can constantly bounce questions off of. Not to say LD's not a great analyst, because he actually is. He knows a ton about the game, but I feel like whenever I put LD in the analyst position, then it's kind of like, okay, well, now I'm doing play-by-play, and one of the best play-by-play casters in the world is not getting a chance to talk as much as I think a lot of people would like him to, which is the biggest thing for me. So
makes sense.
I was constantly trying to dance around like, okay, what does LD want to do? How does he want to make this cast better? And it just is like, I really hope we get like a 30-minute game, a 40-minute game with tons of action, nonstop, battling left and right, a base race. The last game of TI for me was that game. It was that EG game versus DC. So luckily we ended on a high note in that position. But it really depends on the game, which is the most important thing in my mind.
That makes sense. Now, you brought up Manila with LD, and that sort of brings me in transition here with you sort of have, throughout your history, have gained nicknames, whether it's Mute Maut that I just gave you. Manila Maut was really popular for a long time, sort of a ode to your emergence or your blowing up to a major. Another title that sort of has bounced around for a while that I feel like you've embraced in your streams to a certain extent is this Mautism. Mautism Mountain, I think, was even a place where you put people for a while on your stream. Is that something that you're okay with, or does that bother you?
No, I'm definitely okay with it.
Okay.
No, I mean, at first it probably bothered me a little bit, maybe like for the first couple of days, but even nickname, you kind of have to embrace it. Even if it has negative connotations, you have to embrace it and have positive connotations to it. So I made one of my emotes, Mautism, which is the one picture that I was at the Mafia Land #1, and I was wearing that hat, and so that was to me more like what I was going for. Is like, I'm kind of an idiot sometimes. I say some dumb shit sometimes. I might sound weird to some people, but if you don't embrace that, then you're kind of just getting bullied. So I was like, okay, well, I'll make it mine. And then ever since that, everyone kind of uses it in a positive context. At least all my friends do, and a lot of my stream viewers do as well. So, yeah, I'm totally fine with it now, honestly.
You sort of owned it, and turned it into your own version of Gurg to a certain extent. Okay. I was just curious.
It's never really a negative connotation thing. It was like it was definitely one of our friends who made that Twitter site. And when he first found out about it, he couldn't stop laughing. So Greg never had an issue with that Twitter. So it was pretty funny, but a little different.
Fair. Okay, so let's, before I ask you what your plans are next, and then we'll wrap up because we're running out of time here, I do want to bring up an interview that you did at TI3. You were there as a spec, but you had done some casting, and I think it was Flipside Tactics grabbed you and asked you about your assessment for the future of NA Dota. Now, you said at the time that you thought the key to NA Dota becoming a powerhouse was the growth of more tournaments on the scenes and basically convincing American players. You said there's a lot of good players here. They just don't believe it's okay to try to go pro. Now, in TI6, we saw 2 NA teams finish in the top 6. We saw Complexity also get to the wild card round. So that's top 20 teams all around. Do you think that NA Dota has come full circle? Are we represented, or do the fact that so many Europeans play for NA teams ruin that? And do you think it was about the tournaments, or is it about the exceedingly large prize pools that we've seen emerge since TI3?
It's a combination of all of those factors, I think. I think we've been represented since TI5, honestly, since EG got together and Sumiel started playing with that team. I think that, at TI3, we didn't have PPD, we didn't have Zai. We didn't really have RTZ at the time, so it was like, I think I knew of RTZ at that point. I think it was right around that time where I knew he was going to be a big deal, but it was before he actually started playing on teams. So it's a lot of those players that I was like, okay, well, I know about these guys. These guys are great. We just have to get them, in the scene. And now that we got them in the scene, I think that it was because of the prize pools, like you said. It was because of those prize pools and the tournaments with those prize pools that they're able to come over and play more competitively and thus get better, either salaries or what have you for their gameplay. So I definitely think right now NA Dota is in a very good position, even if there's another roster reshuffle. That's the biggest issue, is just like keeping the teams consistent and locking them down and keeping them in place. And I think if DC stays together, I think that'll serve as an indicator that a lot of the teams, and if they stay together and they do well, I think that'll serve as an indicator for a lot of other teams that, hey, we could do well if we just stay together and play well as a team. So it's just keep the rosters the same now that you have these good players. There's always new talent. CCNC is a great up-and-coming player. I hope he gets a chance to play for a good team, or FTL starts doing really well for themselves. They certainly can. It's like those types of players that I'm looking to see more of in the future. It's actually the younger players now. It was back then at TI3, there were some older players that I knew that weren't playing. Now it's the younger players that are coming out of the woodwork left, right, and center to play Dota 2, which is really cool. So hope that continues on as well.
Well, it seems like the skill levels, I don't want to say have equalized, but they've gotten a lot closer in terms of individual play. So really, like you said, team synergy, the idea of keeping a team together, seems to have increased in value dramatically from TI4 to TI6.
Absolutely.
And we'll sort of see where that goes. So what is next for Maut? I know that you are coming off of the TI6 high. After TI5, you had to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and grind your way to TI6. Now you're walking off the main stage.
Nothing's changing. I'm grinding. I have maybe a week, less than a week of vacation, and then I'm going back and I'm doing as many casts as I could possibly do, and to get better is my main goal. Like, I could say right now, I'm going to take a month vacation. I'd be lying. I'm taking literally no vacation, because to me, casting is fun. I love doing it. I would not replace it with anything in the world. And I want to get better. And I want to continue to get better and to show people that TI6 wasn't a fluke, it wasn't a fluke, and that I could do this with the best of the best and be on there on the main stage with whoever and go from there. So, I'm not taking a vacation. You're going to see a lot more of me. And if you don't like my casting, then I'm sorry to say you're going to have to fucking deal with it. So
fair. Well, you know what? I don't like John Madden when he talks about sports, but he's still there. So I think it comes down to people like certain things, people don't like other things, and it is what it is. That said, let me ask you this, not to be a Debbie Downer, but you are working in an industry that is notoriously unstable. It's incredibly hard to keep a career going. Is that something that you're scared of? Do you have a backup plan? Are you pulling a Zai and going to slip away and get a college degree? Or are you going balls out all the way and retiring?
I have no backup plan. If I had a backup plan, that I wouldn't be like super committed to this. I'd just say, okay, well, whatever happens, and I can go back and do whatever later. My backup plan is, I don't know. I don't have one. I don't have a backup plan. I'm just going to cast until I can't cast anymore, until I can't make enough money to live, anymore. That's pretty much what it's going to be.
Now, KotlGuy, who's a friend of yours, said that, I believe it was KotlGuy, said that he would be in Dota till the day that Dota died. Had no intention of going elsewhere necessarily. Is that the way that you feel, or have you explored other opportunities as well?
I mean, like I said, I don't see myself going anywhere. I told people that I might give Overwatch a shot, and I did for like 2 weeks, and I just don't have any interest in commentating that game or following that game. Like, I liked it for the first couple of weeks I played it. I'll still play it occasionally with my friends. They seem to like it a lot. I would honestly prefer to just play more Dota than Overwatch at this point. I am doing a lot of WoW. That's like the only vacation that I'm getting right now. It's just kind of like the new WoW X-Pack is coming out, and that's kind of what I'm doing. Is I'm doing a guild on Tychondrius Horde for WoW called Iron Talon. I'm kind of focusing some of my efforts into that when I'm not casting. But that's not you can't really do that. You can't do WoW as a full-time job, really. There are popular WoW streamers out there that have gotten full-time jobs off of streaming from WoW, but that's not something I plan on doing.
Right.
That's really just more of that's like my vacation. It's like playing WoW at this point, if you want to call it that. But
nice.
Dota is my thing, and it always will be my thing.
Nice.
Even if I suck at it, which I clearly do, that's fine. I want to keep doing it, and I love doing all of it. So
you don't suck as bad as I do. Second, I respect a man whose vacation from video games is video games. And third, a slight correction, the quote was from Capitalist, so I'm pretty sure KotlGuy would say something very similar if I asked him directly.
That sounds like a Cap quote.
It's a Captain America, like I could see. Yeah. Anyway, I got my gorgeous hosts or casters mixed up. Those two are ridiculous. Ryan McLemore and his counterpart. All right, guys, that's about all the time that we have for the show tonight. This has been Maut. Is there anything else you want us to tell you, where to look you up, projects that you want us to know about, or just general shout-outs you want to get into?
All right, so real quick, like I just talked about, if you want to hang out with some Dota personalities, some really cool people that really enjoy Dota, and if you like to play WoW, you can find us over on Tychondrius Horde for WoW, which is on a guild called Iron Talon. I'm currently the GM, and I plan on doing a little bit of the X-Pack, so you can find us over there. If you want to follow me on Twitter for more social media and how to get involved in that Tychondrius Horde guild, you can follow me on Twitter at MautDota. My Twitch, which will be twitch.tv/MautDota2, I'll be streaming a bit more of here in the next couple of days, hopefully. And of course, shout out to Moonduck TV, obviously, not to mention everybody that I work with at TI, all the great people in the industry, all the people that I get to work with. Big shout outs to them, and big shout outs to you for having me. So thank you very much.
No problem. Guys, you can also find me on Tychondrius playing with Maut and the crew over there. I'm a demon hunter, and I don't play as often as I should because I just downloaded Thea the Awakening, and it is insanely addicting. If you haven't played that, Maut, you probably don't want to try it because it'll change the way that you load Steam. You can find me at Toffees TV. A big shout out to Asus, Republic of Gamers, Pro Build Systems, and especially GameLeap.com. I hope that you guys, we're back every week with more shows. We got some great guests coming up. Not a Hacks, the coach from Escape, is going to come on in a couple weeks and chat about what it means to be a coach. A couple other folks on the docket as well that I won't spoil, so stick around and we'll let you know all about that. And if you have missed the show over the last month, it's because we were prepping and doing the morning show at TI. You can still see the segments. You can watch the tours that we did of the city. You can see the food truck showdown that we did with Kelly. You can see all the Dota quiz stuff over on the YouTube channel, so check that out. Remember, if you like the podcast, if you're downloading those through iTunes, please go ahead and give it a positive review, or just a review in general, because it's always nice to see your opinions so that we can make the changes that we need to make. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching. Play more Dota, and as always, Toffees out.